This is the first episode of the Gridiron and Growth Podcast.
Yeah.
We are your hosts, Ryan Harris, Bennie Fowler. We are inside the minds of business champions. And today's the first episode where we are talking about why we're doing this. Ryan, I want to talk to you just about why did you say yes to it?
Well, one, any opportunity to win with you again, I'm taking.
Appreciate that.
And one of the things that I think you and I and really everybody on our Super Bowl 50 team and many teammates we've had throughout the years, life is about the gridiron so much, and you have to grow. And you have to grow as a player, you have to grow as an individual, you have to grow as a teammate. And one of the things I think limits a lot of guys that I played with is that growth to them doesn't go beyond the field. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was always, okay, I want to be great at what I do. And at times I was told I wasn't working hard enough, anything like that. So I had to grow on the gridiron. And I knew that I wanted to continue growing past football. And so I want to be able to bring some of the things that you and I talk about and things that we know a lot of people are interested in, and the people who are making choices and how many times, no matter what they do, what business they're in, or if they do have an athletic background, how similar the stories of growth are.
Yeah.
So that people can see that they're not alone in facing these choices that really ultimately dictate how you are going to live your life.
Yeah.
How about for you, man? What made you join?
Man, number one, I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate the conversations we've been having. I mean, I've known you for 10 years now, which is insane.
Crazy.
But I appreciate the conversations that we have. And I've always wanted to. I started a podcast during the pandemic, and I couldn't keep it going just because, you have to be consistent with it. But I was like, I want to have other conversations, or I would love to do this with a friend of mine where we can just have these conversations if a guest doesn't show, or we can have this conversation with other guests. But I love the fact that we talk about books. I love the fact that we talk about mindset, leadership. But when I really think about a podcast, I think about the stories that we will be able to hear from other people, or that we can share with other people in this incredible platform that we have. And I think you see everybody out here making content and podcasts, and I think most of that is coming from a positive place to put positive things out into the world. And I want to put positive things out into the world. I enjoy talking about football. I enjoy talking about the stories that we had, but I really enjoy the leadership stories. And leadership is something that I know you and I both enjoy talking about. We see the lessons day in and day out in terms of our lives as husbands. You're a father. I'm a dog dad, but we enjoy those conversations. I think we see it in real time too. Like we were just talking about, college football or, experiences that we've had in the NFL, but it always comes back to leadership for us or entrepreneurship and how we are always trying to grow. And I think football is it's a sport that is such a microcosm of life. Mm-hmm. It is the microcosm of life because you have to learn how to work with other people. You have to learn how to handle adversity and failure every single play, every single day. And you have to grow. And I think you play with Mike Tomlin, but what got you here won't get you to the next level. And you have to grow. And I love the growth mindset. So
it's crazy to me. One of the things people ask me, they're like, what did you learn winning the Super Bowl? And I said, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be willing. Mm-hmm. And our whole team shared that, and we've had teammates that shared that willingness. And what I love about having conversations with other people, with you, is you and I will hear something that maybe we don't know anything about, or maybe we have an opinion about, but that's not going to stop us from finding out more about how that person made the decision, what was the impetus behind it. And that's where I believe so many people stop, right? I don't know anything about this, or I've got a different opinion, so my ears are off.
Right.
But we know what our success in the future looks like depends on information we don't have right now.
Absolutely.
And so not only are we going to bring awesome guests for people to learn from, we're going to show people how to ask questions when you do or don't agree with somebody, right? Mm-hmm. That, to me, that's so important right now. I mean, you're in a locker room. We've had racist teammates. We've had, teammates who aren't great people, teammates we would introduce to our parents, people we wouldn't. And you can still be successful together. And we all share these similar experiences, success, failure. As you mentioned, for athletes, failure's so routine for us.
Every day.
You know, I mean, if you don't reach failure, something's wrong in many instances, whether it's the weight room or, you better be tired after practice, right? You can't come into practice like, whoa, that was easy, let's go.
Right.
You didn't get better that day. So it's just fun for me to be able to bring these conversations to people. And I don't think people understand. When you say you and I have these conversations, sometimes we'll see each other for 3 minutes and it'll be like, hey, did you see what happened with this company? Or, hey, did you know, and we'll have these conversations in the, at a stadium or at a practice. You can have these conversations anywhere. And you each of us has the ability to grow. And the gridiron is where we got our start. The game gave us so much. So I want to make sure, too, that we put gridiron in there because it is a gridiron, you know, and we learn some hard lessons.
Every day. Every day, I think, this is just such an incredible platform, podcast, talking. You see people like Joe Rogan out here with his podcast or the All In podcast, one of the business financial podcasts that I listen to, but you get a lot of insights.
Yeah.
You get a lot of insights. And one thing that I want to ask you just on this first episode is like, where did the mindset piece come from for you? Like, as we think about mindset, and mindset is so important. Everybody wants to talk about mindset. I do mindset training. I know you speak on a lot of mindset, but like, why is mindset and why did you always work on that?
That's a deep question for me. And I always use the words I am, I can, I will when it came to mindset, right? Because I needed something to do to say to myself when I was in a place I wasn't prepared for. And that started for me at a young age. You know, I'm multiracial, right? I'm Lakota Indian, African American, German, Norwegian, Irish, you know, and I live on a bridge, I tell people. So all the time I was sitting here, immediately this group's going to find out I'm not one of them, and they're going to make a decision whether they accept me or not, and this group is or other. Now, this is irrelevant, right? Like your opinion about what I look like is irrelevant to my success. So I had to tell myself, like, how can I just stay focused? And I was like, okay, this is my mindset. And the biggest thing that really reinforced the mindset, you've been here too, college, at a certain point in college, it's easy, right? You're not learning new plays. You're not studying film remotely to the way that you can be and that you will be eventually if you win a championship. And when I got released by the Broncos in 2011, I was devastated. And when I looked at it, it would have been easy to blame the coaches. You know, I got an ankle injury and they wanted me to play. I said no. But I was like, what is it? Let me look inside here. What role did I play? And I was like, I was arrogant. I was unwilling to listen. I was paying lip service. And I didn't think those things would catch up to me, and they did. And so I just made up my mind, hey, I am never going to lose my job again because of my unwillingness and my arrogance. I can ask questions. I can recognize distractions. I can focus on, being the best player I can be, and I will do these things the first opportunity I get. Went to Houston for 2 years, went to Kansas City for a year after that, started in 15, played in 16 games, and Bennie, you know what they told me? They said, Ryan, we love you, but we don't think you got any football left. I said, man, I am capable of helping a team win a championship. I can keep playing. I will be on a team, and I will help them reach their goals. And I got a call by Gary Kubiak, who I was with in Houston, to come back to Denver, and we won the Super Bowl. So for me, when I was from beginning, I had to choose my mindset at a different age just to keep moving. And then later, I had to choose my mindset to win. And then finishing with the Steelers was just, you talk about Mike Tomlin, this is a mindset guru. Yes. Hold a workshop, Mike T. But for you, man, like, where did your growth come from? I know your parents had a big influence on it, but where did you commit to growth in your journey?
Without knowing, my parents really paved the foundation for my siblings and I. My mom and dad for my brother and myself, and then my dad got remarried to my stepmom, and my two sisters. My dad has laid an incredible foundation in terms of the way to show up. My mom, just one of the hardest workers. So I would say, in terms of growth, my parents really laid the foundation. Like in terms of discipline, hard work, how to show up. Dad would take us this is when he was a plant manager at Ford, take us to work on Saturday mornings. He'd wear this white coat, make sure no paint, no dust got on him, to make sure everything was up to standard. but working on a Saturday, talking about growth, putting in the extra hours, putting in the work. And then when I got to high school, there was just like a moment where I was at this middle point where I was a good athlete, ran track, played basketball. I wasn't playing football at the time, my first 2 years.
In high school, you didn't play football until junior year?
Junior year.
Wait, for all those parents who put their kids at 6-year-old football, say that again for them?
Yeah, no, my mom. So I played a couple years of Little League, and then I stopped playing. So it was like, I'm going to go. I want to be like Kobe Bryant. Like, Mom, I want to go to the NBA. And that didn't work out, and I played at a really good basketball school. And my mom's like, hey, you need to go out there. And shout out to Jonas Gray and Kenny Dimmons, who were All-American football players at our high school. Jonas went to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And then Kenny Dimmons went to Michigan. And they were like, you need to come out for the football team. Told my mom, and she was like, yeah, you need to go out there. And my dad was like, absolutely, you need to go out there. And my football career took off from there. But you talk about putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, but going back to my parents, that's where the growth comes from. Like, yeah, you don't know if you're going to be successful in it, but how about you go out there and use your talents and your abilities to do that? And then I think mindset really started to kick in when I got to college, because I wasn't a football player. I was just an athlete who was playing football, but I wasn't a football player. And Coach D'Antonio was challenging me.
How?
He knew I had the ability, but, oh, yeah, you're playing special teams. You're not good enough to start at receiver right now. Yeah, you're going to play special teams. That's another growth place where I didn't like to tackle. I'm a receiver. I don't want to tackle anybody. And he's like, no, you're going to go out there. You're playing gunner, which led to me playing gunner in the NFL. But you're going to go out there and you're playing special teams, and then thrust you into situations in terms of, hey, I'm a redshirt freshman coming off of a foot injury, and we're going to put you in on offense against Florida Atlantic at Ford Field.
Wow.
Gives me a reverse, make a play, catch a couple of first downs, and then we're off to the races in terms of that. But you talk about putting yourself in a situation, or the coach putting you in a situation for you to grow. And fun fact right here is that my last high school game and catch was at Ford Field. First college catch at Ford Field. First pro catch at Ford Field.
No way.
Sunday Night Football.
Come
Year we
on.
won the Super Bowl. So all of that was just a crazy full circle moment at just all those catches at Ford Field in terms of my career. But I had some ups and downs at Michigan State, dropping passes. I dropped a pass against Notre Dame on ABC. I'll never forget it. We were running Dancer, a play called Dancer, 2 go routes, headed towards the student section. Ball went right through my hands. And I had never really felt any adversity, real adversity in my life until that moment. And that's where I got the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, which is how we connected in the locker room. So shout out to Robin Sharma, who wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. But that's where I really had to learn about growing and really handling adversity and ups and downs, because up until that point, life had been pretty much easy because I was more athletic than people. I was faster than people. And that's where I really had to start adapting into mindset and, like, what does it really mean to push yourself? And I think I had to really learn how to work hard.
Ooh, we all do.
Yeah. When did you learn how to work hard?
No, when did you, man? I mean, so let me ask you this. You said you had to grow after that drop. What did you do, in addition to reading the book, what actions did you take to grow?
I really got big into mantras. I got big into meditation, and I got big into letting go of perfectionism.
Oh, man.
Because I was just always, when you don't really drop passes in high school. Like, it never happened to me. You just catch the ball and you take it and you go score. Like, football is easy, and then you think that you're going to jump into playing against a Notre Dame and that your skills and talents are just going to take over. Now, don't get me wrong, I beat the defender on that play, but I was thinking about scoring. I didn't finish the play. And I was thinking more about what other people were thinking about me at the time, which is the problem right there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, well, I dropped this pass now. What is everybody saying about me on Twitter and on TV? This is college game days there. We're ranked. I'm starting against Notre Dame, megaphone trophy game, and you don't want to mess up. But I don't know any perfect people. I've never seen anybody play the perfect game. Even the best players have dropped passes, but none of that was in my mind. So I would think that's where I had to learn to let go of perfectionism. And then I had to, like, understand, like, oh, no, to take the next step, as being a starter and playing 70 plays a game. It's different than playing the 20 plays.
Right.
When you're playing 20 plays, it's cool. You know, you go in there, your focus level is at all-time high. Playing 70 plays is totally different. So your work ethic, your conditioning has to be totally different.
But I want to pick up. You said a couple things. I'm so glad you said I was thinking about what everybody else is saying. I feel like I can see that with some players, like especially young players in the NFL. You're like, they're thinking about what people are watching. They're not in the game. Can you see that as well? Can you see when players are thinking more outside of that helmet?
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell by the way they catch the ball. You can tell by the way they rush, by the way they're covering, because I would say it's easier to see in the NFL because it's your job.
Yeah.
And you know what's at stake. There's the possibility out here of the $100 million contract. There's also the possibility of being at home.
Yeah.
And that's like a real it happens in real time. You play on Sunday, you go through Monday, and then you see people cut on Tuesday. It happens every single week. So I think that's one of the hardest things about the NFL is like really staying present, be where your feet are. I think Adam Gase is the first person I heard say that. But yeah, I can see it all the time. I know you can.
Oh man, it's something that I feel bad when I see it because no one outside of that helmet and definitely outside of that field matters in those moments. Like that's all going to come. You know, I had a friend. They came to a game. I was in Houston, and we beat the Colts, and paid for the tickets and we paid for dinner. And we get done with dinner, and we're walking back, and he's like, "Man, you got away with a huge hold in the game." And I was like, "What?" Like, first of all, like, so my mind was like, "What are you talking about, man?" Right. And then I just got to this place because people would do that often. Be like, "Hey, man, good to see you." Good. They call up, "Hey, want to come to Denver? Man, I watched the game, man. We won the game, by the way. You got the quarterback killed on one play." And so I had to get to this place of, I'm so glad you can see my mistakes because I can't see yours.
Right.
And I started saying that to people, and it messed them up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, yeah. That man in the arena, I know a lot of people talk about that meant a lot to me. To those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. Like, don't ever make me that. Like, I'll take defeat if it's not knowing either one. But it brings me to, and it helped me release that perfection. And I want to highlight what you said too about letting go of perfection. Because to me, if you want to be perfect, there's only a level you're going to get to.
Yeah.
And if you abandon perfection but chase excellence, well then, wow, that's the gap that makes champions.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard was it for you to let go of perfection? Do you remember the day that you let go of perfection?
I still haven't.
Really?
It's a constant battle in terms of what I'm trying to achieve, the ability that I know that I have. But to me, it's all about mindset shifts and perspectives. The perspective of what you're talking about. Like, no, I want to get to an excellent level, not I want to be perfect. It's because it's never going to be that. But I'll always see it in different forms of my life of, oh, I'm trying to make this perfect, or this has got to be perfect, and that just stops me from doing incredible things. Or the podcast, like, been thinking about this for a couple of years. It's like, oh, well, it's got to be like this. No, just go out there and do it. You want to do it well. You want to do it to an excellent standard, but no, it's never going to be perfect. So I think I'm constantly working on it. But I do want to highlight the fact that, as we're talking about this, Kadarius Toney, we saw it with the Chiefs on Thursday night. In the Thursday night game of week 1, we saw that. This is a person who is a first-round pick.
Super Bowl champion.
Has longest punt return in Super Bowl history. He overtook our boy Jordan Norwood. Shout out to Jordan. But you could see that. In the last drop he had in the fourth quarter, he caught the ball. He tried to catch the ball like this with his hand or with his body, and there was no one around him. But he had dropped 2 passes, and there was no mindset. There was no getting back to the present moment. How did you handle that throughout your career? And also, shout out to the fact that you would say, "Oh yeah, I can't see your mistakes," because I don't understand how people have no self-awareness about. Ooh. Oh yeah, man, that drop looked really bad. Appreciate it. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's a whole nother vibe, right? I mean, when you look at what you said, capabilities versus ability, and just focusing on the moment. What I would do, and I was big on power tapping. You might have seen it at some times, because there's a method, a technique of, hey, if you're thinking about something, your body tightens up. Like, oh man, I just dropped that pass. Mm-hmm. Like if you tap underneath your hand, like it's separate, and you think about it, hey, I dropped that pass, or I missed that block, right? You can kind of start. For me, that was a start, just tapping underneath my hand of like, hey, the next play, right? And then for me, it's always, what did I go to? And so for me, anytime I failed, I went to technique, right? And I mean literally basic technique. I'm going to get in a good stance with my ankle outside of my knee. I'm going to locate my target. I'm going to kick out. I'm going to stay square, and I'm going to punch the target when I see it. And I think about, there's 2 plays in my career that I love. And one of them I didn't love at the time. We were playing the Oakland Raiders, and one of their team members I think he had 5 sacks or 6 sacks in the game. And only one of them was against me. But it was the worst sack I've ever given. I was upside down. This dude knocked me over. I was like, oh God! And I saw him getting the sack upside down. And I'm just, humiliated, embarrassed, frustrated, angry, right? And I just took a breath, and I was big on breathing. You talk about, being conscious, being present. Breathing is so important. In through the nose. I'd swallow the breath, out for 8. And then I thought, okay, going back to my technique. The very next play, pass, which for a lineman is the worst, right? I just gave up a sack, now we're passing again? Right, like, come on. Right. And sure enough, he's right there. And I get my good stance. I located my target. I kicked. Wham, punched him, he fell out, right? And, what's funny is the group of guys we had, Super Bowl 50, it was just an amazing team.
Yeah.
Like, we would get on each other, but there wasn't like a tenacity where I'm going to embarrass you or try and make our teammates think I'm better than you because you made a mistake. That was the only team I've ever been on that had a team of those guys. Mm. And we get to the film the next day, and, we're in the O-line room, and I'm like, oh, gosh, they show the play, and they do it. And one of my teammates, the guy I played next to, said, oh, man, that's awesome. You're not playing against the best if you don't get beat once in a while like that.
Right.
And I was like, man, yes, that is true, right? Exactly. Like, you can't get ran over. Like, everybody's been ran over at tackle. Maybe not, Andrew Whitworth, who was 370 pounds, right? But there are going to be those plays. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I always go to technique. And I always ask young parents. I say, young parents, they come, and I'm sure they ask you this, like, what do I need to teach my kids? I'm like, you need to teach them what to do when they fail.
Yep.
Because just like you said, you hadn't experienced adversity until college.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And now you can engineer that for your kid. And you and I have seen it. When they do fail and they don't know what to do when they fail, you can see it on their eyes. You can see it in the way that they're shaking their hands. You can hear it in their voice. And so many people feel like, hey, if I don't have success, then it's not for me.
Right.
It's like, come on, man.
Right.
Like, you can't be that weak. You have to go beyond that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for me, it was just being able to continue to press and to know what to do when I failed. How did you handle failing in the NFL? As you mentioned, the scope is higher. You're an undrafted guy. The leash, there's no leash. You're on the harness and the short leash. You know what I mean?
I think I went into the NFL with failure. I wanted to be drafted. So I didn't get drafted. So I went into the NFL, and my first goal was to hear my name called after the combine, and that never happened. So I went into it with failure. And I think on draft day, my dad was the first person to be like, look, you can complain about the fact that your name isn't called, or you can look at the 16 teams that are calling right now and make the best decision for you. And having that in real time and having that perspective, I mean, shout out to my dad, and just like that was the mindset shift right there. It's like, okay, now you have an opportunity. I chose to come to Denver. Now you have an opportunity, which at the time, and I still think, to play with the best quarterback of all time. Mm-hmm. You have an opportunity to go out there and play with him.
Yeah.
So then the possibilities come, and that's all I'm thinking about is, okay, try to make the team. Then you get cut. I get cut after training camp, and that's the first time where, you've been told that you're fired.
Yeah.
And it's the first time for most people, especially for myself, where, you got told that you're not good enough. Like, you're not good enough to play out here.
Were they right, Bennie Fowler?
No, they weren't.
Oh, wait. Just because they told you weren't good enough, they were wrong?
They weren't right at all. I think there's a timing and situation for everything. I might have not been ready to play on that opening Sunday, but once you get the hang of things and you understand and you know how to work, you can catch up quick, because the NFL, it self-selects. It'll self-select people out of the game.
Oh, yeah.
I got put on the practice squad, and they're like, that's your first step. It's going to be like a red shirt for you, but you're going to learn how to play at this level consistently. But that was the first failures, draft day and then getting cut. But I appreciate those things.
Yeah.
And then you have like a guy like Julius Thomas, Demarius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Wes Welker. Those were the pass catchers my rookie year. That's who I get to learn from for the next 6 months. Led the team in preseason the next year in receiving. So just soak up all the knowledge and learning. So with all the failure that comes in life, and it literally happens every time, if you just look at life or look at anybody, if you fail, there is opportunity on the other side if you're open to it. And it's usually right in front of you if you're paying attention. What was your first moment of failure in the NFL?
I mean, first, oh my gosh, there were many. But now I want to bring this up though, because I was thinking about this, like when the first time we noticed each other, because people might think, oh, you're on the same team, you guys, do training camp. I didn't really know many people, I didn't know you.
Yep.
But I remember, I don't know if you remember this. I remember when I knew you would be a great teammate and a great player on the team. We were in a preseason game, and you dropped a touchdown, or the ball got tipped or something. And you came back and you were kind of frustrated, you had your hands on your hips, and I was like, don't worry, you'll get it next time. And sure enough, it was like 2 plays later, you caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's the kind of guy I want to play with, right?
Against Arizona.
Yeah. But I mean, think about this, right? Like, you're fighting for a job. You, one play, dropped something that would have helped you make your job. And instead of whining or pouting, like, you did what you had to do to be successful the next play. I want to play with guys like you all the time, because there's going to be that failure. Yeah. And I remember in that moment, I'm like, okay. And I remember I thought you were Beans. I didn't know you were, because everybody was calling you Beans. Yeah. I was like, Beans can play. I'm like, I love this kid, because that, to me, that's the mindset of a champion. And that's when I'm broadcasting, I look for that. Yeah. Sometimes broadcasters are like, what a terrible miss. It's like, also, can he come back and make the play?
Yes.
Because that's what it takes.
100%.
And you talk about failure. For me, man, I remember when I got to the NFL, I was like, we were in OTAs. First of all, it's supposed to be non-contact. Right. The bruises on my chest, dog. I'm like, these guys, these grown men, boom, just hitting me, and then shit. And I remember thinking, I can't play this game. And I remember being in the showers at the Broncos facility. I'm like, do I need to go tell them that I'm gonna be done, that I'm done, I can't do this, or am I gonna wait for them to tell me? And I kid you not, in my mind, I said to myself, make them tell you. Stay as long as you can. And then literally the next day, one of the linemen said, we leave early on the snap, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, I mean, in college, it's white 80. White 80 said, hut, ball gets snapped, right? In the pros, it's white 80, white, and them guys are gone. Right. That second color, gone. Yeah. And nobody told me that for 3 days. So I'm flailing around, getting punched in the chest, whipped to the ground. And then that day that he told me that, I went out and I actually had a practice. Right. Right?
Wasn't getting beat up.
I wasn't the guy getting screamed at every play. And for me, it was this thing of like, there's so much more I got to learn. Mm-hmm. And the other failure that I had, and I think this is huge in terms of performance, whether it's sports or otherwise, how do you handle success? Mm-hmm. Because I went from there, had to have a back surgery, came back. We gave up 12 sacks on the season, one of the greatest O-lines in Broncos history. We're like number 3 in rushing and number 1 in passing or something like that. We were top 5 in both categories. I got comfortable. I stopped looking for things to learn. Mm-hmm. And that really, it almost ended my career. And so for me, it was this phenomenal. You said it. I appreciate these tough moments. In the midst of it, does it suck? You bet. There's tears. There's doubt. I mean, deep doubt, right? Like
can't sleep.
I can't do this. Like
can't sleep.
Can't sleep.
Yeah.
I haven't. And then you go from there to saying, and then I got in this habit of telling myself, find the work. Right? They tell linemen that too. You get in the middle of space. Don't just stand there with your arms open. Go find work. And I would always just try and do something. So once I got to Houston, I was, hey, man, I'm going to do something about it. And that's where I think most people stop is the failure, and then they don't go to what they can do. And that brings me to my question to you.
Wait. Before you come to the question to me, I do want to double click on finding growth and learning and going out there to learn.
Oh, man.
Because I think that's one of the most important things that we can do in sports, but then also in life. Like, how do you do that in life now, where those moments are? It's like, okay, like, how do you continue to learn or keep that learner's mindset? I think that's super important.
The book you gave me, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, had this mind-blowing concept to me of having an empty cup. And that was so interesting to me. And it's kind of the Zen mantra of, for those who don't know, of, hey, every time you meet someone, think of it as you have an empty cup. Every day you have an empty cup. What are you going to fill it with, right? Or do you even expect that this person can fill your cup with something? I can meet anybody, and I'm going to them with an empty cup. The other thing I started doing, I started feverishly taking notes. That was the biggest change in my career. Because in college, you don't have to take notes.
No.
You're running the same 6 plays, right? I mean, in college, right. You're running 6 plays, and nothing really changes. A cover 2 defense is going to be cover 2 the entire game.
Right.
Right? Which is shocking when you think about it now. But I forgot to take notes. And one of the things that I loved was my school experience taught me how to take notes. And I was thinking, man, I got to start doing this. So I would take notes. Even though I knew 18-week, I'd take notes. And in doing that, I used to find, because one of the things that happened in the NFL that it might be 18-week, but this week it's against a 3-4, or that safety might come down, and we're going to count that guy as a linebacker. We're not going to count that guy as a linebacker. It's 3 words in 500 words that you already know.
Right.
But if you miss those 3 words, that's a big miss.
Yeah.
So I would take a ton of notes, and I would go with a highlighter that night. Only night I took off was Friday night. I need a night, okay?
Right.
Give me a night to relax. But I would go, Wednesdays, I'd highlight the notes at that night. Thursday, highlight the notes that night, leave it Friday. Saturday, we get to the hotel. I'd go over my Wednesday notes, my Thursday notes, my Friday notes. That to me was a large part of me becoming a champion. Actually taking notes, listening instead of having my opinion, that was huge. How do you learn?
I love taking notes. But I love getting tested in terms of, okay, have somebody call the plays out to me, and then I walk through all 3 positions. Yes. I think one of the reasons why I made it in the NFL for so long is because I could learn the entire offense. I could learn where everybody played. So when we have a Super Bowl 50 team with an incredible roster of receivers, okay, Demarius is playing X, Emmanuel's playing Z. Everybody else, you will fit in where you, like, if they need a sub, or you have to learn to play slot. I had never really played slot. So, hey, you have to learn how to play F. You're going to split reps with Jordan Norwood, Bubba Caldwell, and Cody. And so you have to learn how to play that. But the F moves around. It's the slot. Moves around all different spots, but then you have to be able to be Demarius sub or Emmanuel sub. So I would try to learn all of the plays, but I'm a big note taker. And then I'm listening to what the quarterback is saying. What is Peyton actually saying in terms of what he wants on this play?
Right.
Because it matters what he's saying because he's throwing the ball. So I would take notes, and then I would just study the plays, and I would study concepts. And I could remember concepts in terms of, okay, if he's calling Jose, or he's calling Jesse, or he's calling Dancer, or whatever he's calling, what are we trying to accomplish on this play? And that's what to your point, in college, you're playing football, but the level of the NFL, the football, you learn how to play football, and you learn all the layers to why we're calling the play. Hey, we're not calling 18-week because we like 18-week. We're going to call 18-week this week because they cannot block this.
Yeah.
And we're going to expose these two people.
Yes.
Right
we're
here.
targeting these two individuals on this play.
Right.
Never heard that in college.
Yeah. We're going to pick on this guy right here.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. And it's just, I think the level of detail, that's what took my learning to the next level. And even what I carried over into now, because I'm like working at a law firm on the consulting side, venture capital, private equity, the learning curve is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I have to learn. I have to take notes every single day. There are things and meetings that I sit in, and I was like, I don't know what that term is.
Mm-hmm.
Let me write that down. But just being detailed about it, and then asking questions, and then trying to bring it up all the time, and just being curious about things.
And one of the things I think stops a lot of people from learning, and it comes in many different ways, and it presents itself in people differently, but that's fear. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I say often when I'm speaking, I'm like, we talk about fear less than we talk about sex, right?
Right.
What is fear to you, and how did you handle fear as a performer?
When I think about fear, the first quote that comes to mind is Michael Jordan: "Limits like fears are often just an illusion." I'll repeat that for everybody. Limits like fears are often just an illusion. That's a mindset that I try to adopt into everything when I do feel fear. Like, is this real? Mm-hmm. Most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, everything that we're perceiving in our mind that we're scared of isn't actually real. We make all of these things up in our mind. And I always had like a fear of failure, but it's one of those things where you get put in a situation like I was my senior year at Michigan State, where I got benched after the first couple of games, and I had a meeting with Coach D one-on-one. He's like, look, this is your senior year. You're not coming back here. So you might as well just go out and say, fuck it. Like, fuck it. You got to go out there and do it. His exact words. 13 wins, Rose Bowl. I'm the leading receiver on the team with the most wins in school history. Coming to a situation, playing the Arizona Cardinals. I had missed the preseason game before because I had a hip pointer. Coach Kubiak's like, you better go out there and say, fuck it. Like, I can't, like, just because I like you doesn't mean you're going to make this team.
Yeah.
Go out there and say, fuck it. You just have to play the entire game, and that it is what it is. So I think when I hear fear, I think about fear, it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
You know, how did you handle fear in life, football? And yeah, just what are your thoughts on that?
Fear is a constant, and because it's a constant, it's a choice. And I came to that through like 3 different episodes where I was distraught. I mean, my first start here at the Broncos, Monday Night Football, I wake up, I'm like, run. Give the money back. You're going to get Jay Cutler killed. No one's going to want to be friends with you. Like, just don't risk this at all. And I played by that time, I played over 40 games in college. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this fear? And, started talking to a mental performance coach that day. My chiropractor actually at the time was at the hotel, was never at the hotel again any of the other games I was at with the Broncos. This guy's warming us up. I'm like, hey, man, so, like, are you a chiropractor too? I'm just trying to talk so I'm not fleeing the hotel. Like, I was fleeing the hotel. And he's like, actually, no, I work with the mind side of the game. And I turned, I'm like, you got to help me, man. I'm freaking out. And I didn't care. I had a couple teammates in there, and I didn't care. And here's the truth. They had fear too, right? Mm-hmm. They had fear too. And so we walked through how to kind of break it up. I balled out that game. Out against a former Pro Bowler, knocked a Pro Bowl corner that the Oakland Raiders at the time had into the stands. He was upset, didn't matter, gave him more. You know what I'm saying? And later on, that same mental performance coach, we were talking. This is like 4 years later, and I had this fear every game that I was going to give up 6 sacks and it was going to be my last game. And he said to me, as you said, it's an illusion. As Air Jordan said, it's an illusion. He stopped me. He goes, has that happened yet, Ryan? And I was like, well, actually, no. I've not yet given up 6 sacks in a game. I literally said, I've not yet. And he's like, you know what? What if fear's always going to be there? What if that's a part of your process? And that was earth-shattering for me. Of like, I thought at some point I would have no fear. And yet accepting fear as a constant in performance made me recognize it but not it didn't latch into me. It's always a part of the equation, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. B squared is going to be there, right? So what does A squared have to be to add B squared to get what you want? And so once I started understanding fear as a constant, my production, my performance, my life got better.
Love that.
Because you know you're going to have fear when you do something new. You know you're going to have fear when you're going to the Super Bowl. And I think the thing that bothered me the most until I was on Super Bowl 50 team, and I had some teammates throughout that were championship caliber, I'd say. So many guys, I don't have any fear. I'm screaming my rap song in the locker room, right? Because I have no fear. I'm ready. Right. No, you're fearful. And that's okay.
Right.
That's not all you are. Right. And so I think that last piece for me was just, okay, these guys have fear too. Mm-hmm. And they may be listening to music. They may be having 6 cups of coffee in Copenhagen or something. And so what I started noticing is how everyone else was handling their fear, right? Like some guys we know prepared to overcome that fear, but that fear is always going to be there.
It's a part of life because you want to do well, and that's also a mindset shift. And I love the way you think about that. It's like, no, this is part of my process now.
Yeah.
And if I don't have any, then I'm not ready.
Or I'm not doing something big enough.
Yeah.
Like you and I don't have fear when we go get ice cream, right?
Right, exactly.
We know our ice cream, right?
Right.
So for me, then it becomes a choice. Am I going to focus on this fear? Am I going to focus on the A squared part of this equation?
Yeah. I love that, man. And this was the first episode of the Gridiron and Growth Podcast with my man, Ryan Harris, inside the minds of business champions. These are the types of conversations that him and I will be having, but also bringing on different guests. And this is just a platform for us to inspire, impact, and do incredible things.
Stay tuned. We got a lot more for you.
Yes, sir.